Hey everybody, welcome to the Tesla Life episode 32 for December 13th, 2017. My name is Russell Frost, and luckily for you, I'm not alone. I have my two good friends. Let's introduce them and start the show. The man on, well, he's on the left on my screen. I know it's going to be all flipped around for you, but I like to think of him as Tony Schaefer.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize I was on the left. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Yeah, welcome to another show.
Thank you, Tony.
Man, that left really threw him off.
It really did. It came out of left field.
And on the right for Point Counterpoint this week, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Gene, you completely ignorant. No, we're not going to go there.
Nice.
Welcome to the show, everybody. And that reference was from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, like 1975.
Well, to be fair, Canada just got that episode about 3 weeks ago.
Just started.
Yeah,
I thought it was a new series.
This new show called Saturday Night Live.
Absolutely, and since I always forget to say so at the end, let me say at the beginning, our theme music. We want to thank Mr. Lee Moon, a viewer, a listener. He performed and was kind enough to let us use it. So thank you, Lee.
Yay, Lee!
Thank you.
Let's get the show started, shall we?
Yes, indeed.
I think Mark has the first story to kick this off. Something about jobs and taxes.
The Gigafactory construction has continued along, as we know. It's always under construction. But what's kind of interesting is that they've been able to hit their milestones for the tax relief that they got from the state of Nevada. So, of course, like maybe some other groups that stated how fast their factory was going to grow and how many jobs it was going to produce, Tesla's actually hit the milestones that have been laid out by the watchdog for Nevada. And they've hit those, if not exceeded a number of them. So good to hear that the Gigafactory is still growing on time, and they're starting to recoup some of the benefits of having that in Nevada. Certainly, employment is a big one. I believe there's over 1,100 people now employed at the Gigafactory. And as you can see from the photo on screen, they just keep adding blocks of it and pushing it out further and further into the desert. So it's certainly continuing to grow. And as you can see, there's still lots of room that's been flattened out that it will eventually grow too. But great to see that this monstrosity just keeps getting bigger. And part of the formula for success for Tesla is getting those battery prices down, and this is what is enabling a lot of that to happen.
It stands in stark contrast to a company that we don't talk about here, but that we've talked about a lot on What Drives Us, which is another company that sucked up some state benefits and some local benefits, was going to build a huge factory, a company called Faraday Future, and then basically reneged on all of the deals. So I'm really glad that Tesla is the company's, coming through. That they're not. It's not like, oh, it's another electric car company failing to keep any of its promises.
Yeah, there's no shell game here. What you're seeing is real, and certainly it has been written in the news. It's certainly producing and pushing out batteries now.
And as much as we say, and we truly believe, we don't want to see any alternative fuel companies, anything that can get us off fossil fuels. We don't want to see any companies fold. We want every company to succeed. But the way this played out, to have one company fold up and blow away, so monstrously, and then have another one literally blossom in the desert. See what I did there? It really does show that it's not the technology, but the company itself. So, like Mark said, you can't. It removes the possibility of someone saying, "Oh, it's another battery manufacturer. It's another electric car manufacturer. It's going to fold up and die." No, now we have two very stark comparisons. One was mismanaged and was in well over their head before they even got started. And the other one is turning into an incredible, valuable company who's meeting and exceeding all their targets.
I love that.
Yeah. So, we're looking forward as it grows a little further and they recoup even more of the milestones that they've laid out in front of themselves. But it's looking good, and it continues to look good. So fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of milestones, Tesla, I don't know if it was a milestone, but something very important happened for the Semi this week.
Yeah, there was an explosion of orders that rolled in this week. Starting earlier in the week, we had a report that Budweiser decided they're going to haul beer in the Tesla Semi. Mm-hmm. And they pre-purchased 40 units. And then the next day, not to be outdone, the food distributor Cisco indicated that they were buying 50 units. And not to be outdone again, Pepsi Cola came in at the end of the week and said, we've ordered 100 units. So that with the other units that have been ordered publicly or that we know about, we're well over 200 at this point. That have been confirmed by different companies publicly. Mm-hmm. But another little bit of information was discovered that somebody going into either reserve or to look at the trucks noticed that when they put their order in for a unit, it came back with a reservation number that kind of looks sequential. And that's unusual for Tesla because as people know with the Model 3 and other vehicles, they mix up the numbers typically so that nobody really knows what spot they're in line. But this sequential number looked at about 1,200. So it got people speculating that there could be possibly 1,200 different Semi orders out there. This is unconfirmed, but this is speculation of a group that have been looking at the numbers that they've received and comparing it to some others. So wouldn't that be shocking to know that, it's not a few hundred trucks, but maybe over 1,000?
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I have one concern here, and I hope that Tesla delivers on this promise with these trucks. Because there's a lot of other truck companies in the United States that are making trucks and that aren't getting sold. And I'm glad. I would rather people buy these electric trucks. I'd much rather do that. That said, if these orders are hurting those other companies and then they don't follow through, it's going to be more than tragic. You know what I mean?
So are you saying that Tesla may, if they were not to follow through with the orders that they've received, like if they were not to be able to build them, is that what you're getting at?
Guess what I'm saying? Look, if PepsiCo's going to buy 100 trucks, which isn't all their, isn't their entire fleet, and it's not going to hurt. I don't know what the economic impact is, but I would hate to see Tesla depress orders from existing companies and then not deliver on this. I want to see them follow through and to get these trucks on the road so that we can get older diesels off the road. But this is, how do I say this? This is different than consumer cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is somewhat different.
Different. And I maybe that's just me. That's my point of view.
But I do think, some of these, some of these, like Pepsi, these companies, they have thousands and thousands of trucks on the road at any given time.
Right.
So I think ordering 100 is just a toe in the water. I don't think it's a make or break. I don't think it's going to do any great damage if Tesla's late a quarter or two.
I totally agree. I don't want to be melodramatic or anything. I'm looking right now, and this is what I was frantically looking for. How many trucks a year does PACCAR, which makes Kenworth and Peterbilt? How many trucks a year? Anybody want to guess how many trucks a year they sell?
Manufacture and sell?
Yeah. I would not have guessed. So
is it more than 100?
It's way more than 100.
Would it be around 4,000?
It would be, let's see.
I was going hundreds of thousands in my mind.
For Kenworth and Peterbilt, record sales in 2015 of 278,000 vehicles.
Not even close. Okay.
Wow.
Again.
And this is just one manufacturer.
Right. Well, two the biggest. That's Peterbilt and Kenworth. That's not, Mack or I don't know. I get lost after that. But
Sterling.
Well, I mean, we know that Volvo and Mercedes make.
Volvo's a big one too. Yeah.
I want them to be successful. Like all these things, I want them to come through and deliver and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's especially important here. Deliver on this promise.
I wonder if, as we know, the thing called Elon time, anyone that's ordering anything from Tesla has got to play that into their mind if they know anything about what they're doing. I don't
think you get to do that with this, though.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, would you? After certainly. Well, I don't know if Elon's getting better at it, or if maybe he's suppressing what he's saying, or what. But certainly, the Model 3 looks like it's going to be a little closer than what the Model X was, or the Model S was, or the Roadster was. But Elon tends to be over positive that everything will work out, and these numbers will actually happen because this is the best thing that could possibly happen. Therefore, it will, and that's my timetable. So I got to believe that anyone's ordering trucks, you've got to know the history. You've got to be, as Tony said, these are not huge orders for these companies. These are testing orders. They're just trying to see if it will work in their area or what they need it to do. And I think that if it's late a number of quarters, I think they'll be, it's not going to hurt them.
I have a whole another angle on this. And it's about, it's not really about whether they deliver, when they deliver, or whatever. I think if you look at the history of what Tesla has done, not what they've delivered, but the changes they've brought about. So they manufactured a Roadster, and people said, yeah, that's a fun little toy. And then they came out with the Model S. And people said, it's an all-electric, kick-ass, fun-to-drive, four-door sedan. And now you have multiple manufacturers making, four-door electric sedans. And they came out with the X, of course. And, they're pushing. And I think that if they show the viability of electric semis, even for short routes, and then hopefully battery tech gets better, they're going to push the Peterbilts and they're going to push the others to get into the electric vehicle market. That's my take on this, is they're going to push the delivery market in the same way that they're pushing the consumer vehicle market.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they do that in everything they do. So you're right. That's exactly what's going on. And we've seen evidence of that. We've seen evidence of that today. A new truck startup in California called Thor has appeared out of nowhere. And they have a design of an electric truck that they're starting to push. So you're absolutely correct. They are pushing the industry, whatever industry they're in.
And I know it's apples and oranges, and literally apples, but when Apple introduced their iPhone, suddenly the entire industry shifted. And I've said this on this show before, but when there was a rumor 3 years ago or so that Apple was going to make a watch, suddenly everybody had a watch.
Yeah. Very
Not
true.
that there weren't a bunch already.
I'm not saying there weren't, but you started hearing more about it.
Right. And we've seen how well that worked out for most of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that Moto X. Oh, wait, that's gone. And then it's like,
right.
They come and they go.
Yeah.
I don't know what my point is there. I just, there you go. Well, speaking of not really knowing what my point is, you have
the next story about something happening we perceive in Q4.
We perceive. Well, now let's change because I don't know that I want to own this one. But, good old Fred Lambert at Electrek, who is certainly well positioned to get lots of Tesla news is certainly a very vocal and very positive force behind Tesla PR. And by PR, I mean he's a news place, but not a lot of super critical reporting. Okay, that's all. I don't mean that he's a hack or a shill or anything like that. I just mean if it's negative, you don't usually see it on Electrek. If it's positive, you do, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, you just have to know that going into it. So the Electrek take is Tesla's primed to have a stellar fourth quarter. They point to Tony. Do you? Oh, thank you, Tony. I guess there we go. There's that picture. Because who wants to look at me talking? For God's sake, I love this photo. I just love this photo. He points to what he believes will be record S and X sales. Why? Well, because, for instance, one of their biggest markets, Norway, did not pass what they were talking about doing, which was to take away the incentive from Tesla, as we reported Germany is doing because of the high cost. Norway didn't. There's a lot of Teslas in Norway, and the Norwegian government offers strong incentives to buy them, and people will keep buying them, and that's a good thing for Tesla. Mm-hmm. Model 3 deliveries, are still really up in the air. We've seen reports of new holding tanks, of new storage areas, or whatever. We're going to talk a little later on about some things that affect this, but we haven't really seen that ramp up yet. But things are looking a little better with Model 3. Just this morning, if I'm not mistaken, in reconciliation, the United States Congress, such as it is, kept the EV incentive for 2018 in the tax bill that looks to be imminently passed and signed. So another huge thing for Tesla. Will that $7,500 mean that people will or will not buy them? I mean, $8,000 is $8,000, right?
Yeah, it could come into play, especially in the lower tier models. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't, I get it. Like, if you're going to buy a $100,000 car, $7,500 probably isn't going to kill you. But taking that away isn't going to help. So that's definitely a good thing. Specific numbers. In September, Tesla delivered 2,000 cars in Norway alone. Record month led to a record quarter of 2,359 vehicles delivered. Again, according to Electrek, I'm not sure where they're getting these numbers because Tesla doesn't release numbers. Lots of places come up from whether it's registrations and whatnot. So, again, excuse me, right here in this next paragraph, based on registration data. So, that's it's a reasonable guide, even if the numbers aren't exact. But of course, here we want Tesla to do well. We hope that they will make it work.
And it's interesting to see that the number of, like, for example, in the country of Norway, where they had the threat that the incentives could have disappeared for Tesla vehicles, the run-up to that deadline, of course, Tesla had record numbers in that month because, of course, people are padding their, the possibility that the incentive would disappear, even though it did not. There were more purchases of those vehicles running up to that deadline. So again, that helped Tesla because that month is part of the fourth quarter that we're sitting in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how strong Model S sales still are.
Yeah, that the Model 3 introduction, although we know most people are still not receiving it, we're still waiting, did not really take away from those orders. In fact, as Elon had put it in one of his conference calls, that Model S orders have actually gone up still.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I just, obviously, it's a 5-year-old car. Now there's been some changes and they've tweaked some things like that, but that's a strong sales, growing sales trend. It peaked in 2015, and there's been some ups and downs, but it's still selling well. Yeah, it's all like that.
Well, and that means, I think that the early adapters are done, and now we're seeing mainstream And I think, maybe in the early adapters, they weren't stealing as many other car company customers. But I think now they're starting to. The people who are going to buy a $75,000 to $100,000 car are now getting to that point that they believe the durability, and they've heard more about it, and they're willing to leave, say, BMW or Lexus or whatever else they were driving, Bentley, I don't know, and they're willing to get a Tesla this time.
Yeah, and that's because of those early adapters, the good press, the people talking the car up. That it's certainly more mainstream than ever. And you're right. You've got a new market of people that are sitting on the outside, knowing or believing that this is a route that they could go and are going to investigate, and a lot of those people will end up buying.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry.
No, that was it.
Well, speaking of things coming, and we already talked about this vehicle once, we'll talk about it again. Something was seen, as this headlight states, in broad daylight, as though for some reason a Tesla vehicle should be afraid of the sun.
Was it me? I don't look good in broad daylight, I can assure you that.
So there was a gentleman who was visiting. And while we do this, Russell, if you could line up that video again, I don't know if it'll work or not.
I got it.
Did I skip right over?
I got it.
Fair enough. Thanks, Tony. This gentleman was driving into Hawthorne's design studio area, and what pulled out in front of him but the Tesla Semi in daylight. So it is not a vampire. It does function in the day, and can drive around, and he was able to post a video that we've, of course, shared on our Twitter feed, and a couple of still shots here we see. But very interesting, and we kind of got this in the unveil, but you notice the side panels on the back of the truck that are covering the rear axles.
Yeah.
And I don't know how practical that is in a day-to-day trucking environment. Mm-hmm. It may be fine to show the vehicle off, but man, it took a long time for trailers just to get skirts. And you notice that those trailer skirts now, they're all bunched up and broken and ripped. And here we've got something that's covering the back two axles. I don't know how practical that is as time goes along in the trucking industry. Obviously, it helps to be more aerodynamic, and that helps at all. But man, I just don't know if you're going to be able to see that in reality as time goes along.
Well, and Elon may think that the windshield can take a nuclear blast, but the tires probably won't.
Unless they bring out the run flats or the airless.
Unless they do.
Yeah, that would be the only saving grace right there.
Right, and that's a huge cost for trucks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And another thing that you notice in this picture is up at the cab, you've got the weird kind of pop-open window that is just kind of showing on the side there. So that appears to be almost like a venting of the side window.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Over on the left side.
Over here?
Yeah, there.
I thought there was a camera, personally.
Well, the camera's there, yes, but look down below the camera.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's
you've kind of got this V shape that looks like it's like the old 80s pickup trucks that would have the side vent, and you would push it out, and it would stick out and provide some ventilation.
You mean the 460 air conditioning that my old car had?
Exactly. Yeah. The Econo air conditioning window. So I don't know if that is the case, but I've looked at it a few different angles, and it appears to be that.
It's there and over here. Yeah. I'm trying to get different.
It definitely looks like glass. I mean, you can see that.
Yeah.
And you can see on that picture, Tony, about it looks like an arm sticking out of the middle of the window that's pushing it. Yeah.
Wait, here?
Just up
halfway.
Middle of the window.
Yeah. I thought you meant a human arm. I'm like, I don't see it. Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if that, and of course we didn't see this in the unveiling and all. They didn't talk about the exterior windows, except for, you know, it could stop a nuclear blast. But other than that, we're not sure if that is a feature of the vehicle or maybe is just, you know, because it's a prototype.
Yeah, I mean, it's so early now. How do we even, you know, it's like the Roadster. Speculating about the Roadster is like,
Yeah.
The amazing thing is that they have working prototypes, not that the working prototypes are going to reflect the production vehicle.
Yeah.
And one other item that was brought up from these pictures being shown is the back of the cab that you can see clearly in this photo. You notice that there is, you can see the hanging hose there,
The
which
pneumatics,
is you know, that might be the grouping for the pneumatics or possibly wiring for lights.
Yeah.
But it's shown that the back is not, there is no battery up against the cab wall, which was a speculation that some people thought that the vehicle might be getting, because it was shown at night, it was shown in the dark, and you couldn't necessarily tell if that wall was thicker than what the cab was or not. But they believe from these photos that there is definitely no battery pack there. That's just the back cab of the truck itself, and there's no extra room there that's being taken up by another space.
Yeah.
So again, it just fills in a couple of questions that people have had and answers a few things, although not a great deal. But there are a few more tidbits of information to be added to what we know about the vehicle.
Right.
It is interesting. I mean, I'm looking at the position of the hitch, the fifth wheel hitch, where the trailer, you know, the big horseshoe thing down there.
Yeah.
It seems really in an odd place, and I can't really figure out why. Which is to say, I'm not a truck expert, but it just looks like it's either. Don't they normally sit farther back?
Well, typically in trucks, they are on some sort of a slider. So they can be positioned in different spots depending on what type of a trailer they're pulling. So sometimes the hitch is closer to the back, and other times it's up in the middle of the two axles. So it really depends on what you're hauling.
Okay.
And since this truck is not hauling anything, and I'm sure at the unveil event they weren't hauling anything either. They were just empty trailers. I am reasonably sure that was the case. So we'll have to see. But you know, the specs are 80,000 pounds. The legal limit is what this thing will haul. So excited to see. And actually, one of the other companies that purchased these vehicles, Loblaws, they have a depot in my town. Where the large food depot where they transport trucks come day in and day out to move food around. And when the truck becomes available, I'm going to be out scoping it out, seeing if I could see one because Loblaws has got an order of 20 in, and I'm sure they'll put it on this route.
I take back everything I said. It's about in the regular position. I just had to look at some other trucks real quick. Hey,
Okay.
Tony, I bet you have some cool video for us.
Yes. And this is, oh wait, I have to, I can actually screen share. I don't know, Mark, you want to talk about this? Because this is
on our Twitter feed, we just happened to come across this, and St. Louis Tesla on Twitter posted this and said, almost plaid. And what we've got here is a car going through a Christmas light decoration at rather slow speed, but giving you the impression that was put on the opening event of the plaid walkthrough that was shown on many videos as this car goes through the Christmas light display here, obviously somewhere in St. Louis.
Very nice. Our thanks to at St. Louis Tesla for that.
Exactly. And since we're thanking people, last week, Tony and myself and Russell were talking a little bit about the upcoming opening of the Tesla store in Chicago. Oh. And we put out a question or a note to our listeners that if they happen to be in the area, why not snap a few photos and send them our way? And it turns out that one of our listeners or watchers in the Chicagoland area, his name is Zachary, sent us some photos of the opening of that store.
Thanks, Zachary.
And I'm just trying to pull it up, and of course I've lost my spot. But
it's not Internet Explorer.
It's just, isn't it just that?
It's just the Internet Explorer. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. That's all it is.
Well, ask Clippy. Maybe Clippy can help you.
Clippy's long dead. No, I cannot
No?
pull it up. Oh, that's terrible. Terrible. Zachary, and he provided us 4 photos of the outside, the inside, a couple shots of the vehicles that were in there. It's on our Twitter feed somewhere. Oh my gosh. We post way too much on Twitter. That's our problem.
The call to action is just go to our Twitter feed at Tesla Life, right? And see the pictures.
Well, what I have found is, I'll share this right now, which is maybe our last thing that we typically end the show on, but I do want to give an update as to the latest Model 3 numbers that have been found. So here we go. Number 2077 is now in the books. So the numbers keep going up. Now, is this enough, you guys think? Is this enough that the bottleneck is fixed? Or is this...
I think it's a huge bottleneck.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still think they're quite tied up, do you?
I think it's going to be, if some of the reports that we've heard of the manual manufacturing, the amount of last minute fixes, if those reports are true, I think that it's going to be a while before they ramp up to the point that Elon wants to be.
Yeah, I want to see more vehicles in consumer hands. I think it's just too early to tell. I don't know. Maybe the bottleneck is fixed. And if we start seeing a bunch of vehicles out there, then we're going to know that all of a sudden. But just like seeing random VIN numbers, is a little, I don't know. It's
yeah.
It's not, how do I say? It's not conclusive. It's encouraging, but it's not.
The numbers certainly are going up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of, I guess, silently sitting here waiting to see thousands. And it's only going up by hundreds.
Yeah, I think one of these days, someone at Tesla who's making these those little slips, he's gonna turn to his buddy. He's gonna say, "Hey, watch this," and he's gonna write 32,783, and he's gonna put it on a card. He's just gonna leave it somewhere to be found.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see that these numbers are going up, and those holding spots that are happening in Southern California, these parking lots where they're placing these vehicles, are starting to fill up. And there's been there'll be another story we've got about that in a moment. I have found the Zachary photos, so I'm just going to share them with you right now.
Hey, Zachary, there you go.
And he got the front of the store there, and it looks like it's just off of Michigan Ave.
Shiny.
Yeah. And then get a load of the luster of these views sitting in the street. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. They look like pieces of art.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that does not look like something you would see rolling down the street.
So you're saying your car's not that clean, Tony? Is that what you're saying?
It's almost winter, man. Our cars are both salt licks.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much at this point, yeah.
What is that like? I'm just curious. It's been so long. No,
well, you can buy a one-way ticket up north and find out for yourself.
In Southern California berating the other two people for no good.
And then one more shot with another exterior looking in from the other side.
And that's typically my view of a Tesla showroom right there.
Just window shopping.
From the outside looking in. That's me in a nutshell right there.
Tony.
But hey, yeah, thanks, Frederick, for the pictures. These
No,
are,
Zachary.
Well, he goes by Frederick. He and I we go way back.
You're on a whole different level with Zachary, obviously.
Zachary, Frederick, something like that.
So not true.
Yes.
Very good.
He's typing up a hate tweet at me as we
right now.
Yeah. Exactly. Just when I need more hate mail. Thank you, Tony. Well, I think Mark has something about Tesla in China. Yes,
just recently, Tesla at the beginning of the week talked about them. Actually, it wasn't them. It was discovered by someone going through paperwork and discovered that there was some dollars spent on R&D office that is based in Beijing area. So as you do recall from the Q3 earnings call, Mr. Musk had indicated that he was not going to be spending much money outside of the assets that were currently under development. He was specifically asked about a China amount to be spent on another Gigafactory, and he indicated that that was a couple of years away, and they weren't going to be spending much at all towards that, besides the assets that they already have in place, such as the Gigafactory in Fremont. But this information was unveiled that it's got an R&D center in Beijing, registered under another new name, but Tesla's in the name. But it is just a small office that apparently is going to do R&D. All they've got is a description in the paperwork that was filed. So really, we have no idea what it's going to do. But with China, of course, being one of Tesla's biggest markets, if not the biggest, or will be the biggest, certainly they're going to have assets in place in that country in order to serve it properly. So this might be the beginning of that as they start to gear up and get ready for pushing more and more cars into that area of the world.
Right, and you mentioned I'm gonna stop screen sharing here. So you mentioned being such a big market, and it just took a real quick Google search for me to find that. Wait. Geez. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but I pulled up a website and it started playing music. Anyway. Yeah. So China did pledge to cap its carbon emissions by 2030, and they've committed to go all electric vehicles in right around 2030, and in that same time zone. So with the number of people in China, the number of cars in China, the growing classes, the middle class being able to purchase cars, it's going to be huge in China.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute explosion.
Yeah, it's going to eclipse every other market.
Yep, so they're getting ready for that. And of course, as we mentioned, there will be a Gigafactory at one point, but right now they're just starting with one office. So we'll see where it goes.
Got to start somewhere, I guess.
Exactly.
That's how these things start. Well, dare I say it, Mark?
Haven't really. Well, we've got one kind of further story, which is about those holding lots that we've been seeing in the Twitter feed, again, at the Tesla Life, if you want to see this throughout the week. But this story is about a particular holding lot in Marina Del Rey in the Los Angeles area. Someone scoped out and found out, as we saw last week, taking pictures from a neighboring tennis court, that there was a parking lot filled with Model 3s, that they could at least count about 40 or 50 of them. And this 131,000 square foot facility has been rented by Tesla and is being turned into a delivery showroom. And this earlier in this week, it started to deliver cars. We thought that maybe the public would be starting to receive these cars, non-Tesla employees, but it turns out that was a little bit off. What people have been invited to this area or to this showroom for are the people from SpaceX. So SpaceX is now receiving their employee cars that have ordered the model that is being offered. So those 40 or 50 cars are most likely going to SpaceX employees or investors or connections to SpaceX. But we're still waiting and watching because up at Fremont, there was an influx of, some had guesstimated about 100 Model 3s that are now sitting in that lot. So there is speculation that the non-Tesla employees will start there in the in the San Francisco Bay Area, will be summoned to that Fremont delivery center, and that's where they will be picking up some of those early cars as well. So we're all watching the feeds, trying to find out who's going to be first, and we've even got a couple of calls out to people that have filled out their form to get a Tesla, and they've been given the 4 to 5 week timetable, and we've asked them if they would like to be on the show once they receive it, so we're waiting to hear from them as they get their cars. So if you happen to be one of those people and would be interested in talking about your newly found Tesla, then please feel free to send us a note, and maybe you two can join us and we can discuss your new car. So we would love to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I have some, one more thing.
Go for it.
Get some clickbait here. And by the way, just for those of you listening, these guys have no idea. I actually just remembered this, and I just Googled it. So I remember reading yesterday in Flipboard that I read, and that Toyota was going to have a press conference at the middle of the night, Central Standard Time here in Chicagoland. So I made a note to myself to make sure and Google it, which I did about 45 seconds ago. And it turns out, according to the headline, of course, it's clickbait, that Toyota and Panasonic have struck a battery deal in threat to Tesla. So it would seem that there's they're going to investigate the technical potential of batteries that use prismatic cells grouped together in pouches to power electric cars. So the reason this is a really big deal is, as we've noted on the show, that Toyota has traditionally been very standoffish with electric vehicles. And so now here they are doing a partnership with Panasonic. It makes you wonder, is Toyota going to jump headlong into actually manufacturing electric vehicles?
What do you think? What do you think? They're saying they're courting Panasonic, the world's largest car battery manufacturer there is.
Yeah, I mean, you want to say that, of course, they're going to, but even in this, even in this press release, or it's not even a press release, they just seem very standoffish about the entire thing.
Well, that's probably a good way to describe what Toyota has been with this. They've been so deep into hydrogen. It's they haven't had a lot of time or resources to put into the electrification. But I think with the past news releases that they've realized that that's a place they've got to be.
Right, and this does feed right back into what I was saying before. Toyota being very standoffish with batteries, but Tesla has shown the viability. And, we said when the Model 3 was released, introduced, and at that time, 400,000 reservations, we pondered how many heads of the other manufacturers are making note of just how many cars Tesla is going to sell and has already sold.
Exactly. How many people stood up or fainted in boardrooms across the country as they realized there's 400,000 orders that flowed in that one day?
Right, right. So this is, I think this is another example of Tesla showing the viability and actually leading the market.
Very good. Very good.
There you go. Thanks, Tony.
Yep.
Thank you. And for more on that story, by the way, if you don't already watch What Drives Us, watch What Drives Us. We're gonna dig deep on that one.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, no, we're gonna dig way deep on that because this is a potentially seismic maneuver that I think a lot of people missed. And Ed Niedermeyer, who did some reporting on it very early, and his partner at Daily Kanban, Bertel Schmidt, Ed's coming on, and Bertel wrote a story on it. So we'll go into all of that in depth.
Ed's going to be on the show?
Ed is going to be on the show.
I better start drinking now.
Cheers, man. Yep, better start drinking now.
All
right. Mark, one more thing?
No, come on. How many one more things can we have? I think we're done.
Fair enough. Tony, do some shout-outs for me, my man.
I want to give out shout-outs to our regulars, Lee, Matt, JT, David. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me in the chat room. We did have, it was David and I were going a little back and forth. We were trying to figure out what the collective noun is for Teslas.
Tesla?
Well, yeah, it's like a murder of crows, or
it's an Elon of Teslas.
An Elon of Teslas. There you go.
That's almost where I said it was a Musk of Teslas.
A Musk
so
of Teslas.
I think we're on the same wavelength here. And he had a school and a storm of Teslas. Yeah, so the light banter that we have in the chat room here.
Maybe that should be the show title: An Elon of Teslas.
Elon of Teslas.
Perfect.
So, and as I mentioned before, I do use Flipboard as a news aggregator, and if you do as well, look for the. Wait, I'm on the wrong show.
You're on the wrong show, Tony.
Yeah,
that's the next show.
I do use Facebook as a social media outlet, and if you do too, make sure and look for Facebook.com. The Tesla Life #1, and you will find news and articles and stories that we cover on this show.
And find us on Twitter at The Tesla Life, and you can follow news stories as we move throughout the hours of the day. Maybe too often, but they're all there. So come take a look and join in the fun.
And it's definitely a good idea to follow us, or a good idea to follow us on Twitter. Mark is always posting stuff on there, like the St. Louis Tesla video and all kinds of. So, if you really want to keep up to date, it's a great way to do it on Twitter. And of course, search the Tesla Life Show on YouTube. Subscribe there. That way, you get automatic notifications every time a show is about to start. Even if you don't watch us live, it's a reminder to come back and watch us when you have a chance. And
exactly. Get your phone or your device to ding, and we're on air.
It's the machine that goes ding. Sorry.
That's another show title.
That's another show title. It actually was a show title, believe it or not. So my huge thanks to my comrades in Tesla here, Mr. Tony Schaefer, Mr. Mark Coughlin. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you.
And of course, I want to thank all of you out there who watch or listen. Do check in next week and find out what is going on in the Tesla life. Thanks, Lee Moon. See, I always forget.